In this first problem, what we're going to try to do here is take this number that's written with a fractional exponent and convert it to a number written with a radical. So to do this, we're going to use the rule, and the rule that we're going to use is this. If we have x, some number raised to the m over n, we're going to write this as, actually there's two ways we could write this. The bottom number here, the denominator, is always going to become the root. That's the number in the corner. So we're going to write this as, we can start like this, the nth root of x, the nth root of x. And now this numerator, m in this case, we can write as the power. So the bottom number n, that bottom number becomes the index, right? Every time the bottom number becomes the index, and the top number is going to become the power. And the power, we can write either outside or inside, either one. So if we decide to write it outside, we would enclose that in parentheses because we want all of it to the mth power. And if we go inside, we can just write it right under the radical. Now, here's how I decide which one I'm going to use. If I'm dealing with numbers, I'm going to use this form. And if I'm dealing with variables, I'm going to use this form right here. So in this problem here, number 1, we've got 13, that's a number raised to the 1/2. So the denominator, the 2, that's going to become our index. So let's write that. This is going to become, our index is 2, and our number is 13. Now, the numerator here is just a 1, so I could write that 1 right here, or I could write it outside, but either way it doesn't matter. This is still going to be the square root of 13, and because this is a 2, I don't really need to write it. So we're going to claim now that this is the way to convert 13 to the 1/2 to a radical. So in number 3, we've got this number, negative, and then 49 to the 1/2. So this 1/2 applies to the number directly below it. That's the 49. It does not apply to the negative. If the negative were to be included, this problem would look like this. Negative 49 to the 1/2. But that's not what we've got. That negative is not included. So we're going to have negative, and then the bottom number here is the index. So it's going to be the square root of 49 to the first, so just 49. And I'm going to write it like this. This is going to be negative the square root of 49, which I just happen to know, right? That's 7. So we're going to claim that that is a simplified form of negative 49 to the 1/2. And here in problem number 7, we've got 9, a number, raised to the 5/2. So the bottom number we know is the index. So let's write this as the index. I'm going to write it as the square root of 9. And now here's what we said in our rule over here, right? Here's our rule. So the bottom number becomes the index. That's the number in the corner. So we did that. And the top number in the fraction, that's going to become the power. So the power can go outside or inside. And the way I like to write this is, if I'm dealing with numbers, which I have right here, right? I've got a number. I'm going to put this top number on the outside. So I'm going to put this 5 here. I'm going to put it on the outside. So that's going to make things look like this. I'll have that to the 5th power. Now, I just happen to know the square root of 9, right? That's 3. So 3 to the 5th. And 3 to the 5th, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 turns out to be 243. Now in this problem, this is going to be 324 to the 1/2. So once we get used to this, we don't really have to convert this now to radicals, but we know that the bottom number is the index, so maybe this is kind of what we do in our head. This might be in our brains here. We'll do the square root of 324. So this is just in our head, right? We just know mentally to convert this. And then I'm thinking the square root of 324. Well, that turns out to be 18. And, you know, I didn't know that off the top of my head, but after you do a few of these, we get to become familiar with these numbers. So in number 13 here, number 13, we want, right, this is the bottom number. That's our root. This is the third root, or the cube root of that number to the first, right, just to the first. So it's the cube root of 729. So we might think of that in our heads, right? The cube root of 729, that's kind of what we're thinking. We don't have to actually write it. Okay, and that turns out to be 9. 9 times 9 times 9 is 729. Now in this problem number 17, we've got a number, 36 over 49, raised to the 1/2. Now maybe we've done enough of these that you know that the bottom number tells us the root, and if it's a 2, it's a square root. So what we're thinking here is I want the square root of 36 over 49. Now I know the square root of 36. Square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 49, that's 7. And the numerator here is a 1. That's the power to which we raise this. Well, I'm going to raise 6/7 to the first power. That's just 6/7. So what you're seeing in your head now is that this square root is really this. Here's what you see in your head. We're seeing the square root of 36 over 49. That's what we see in our heads. And then we just write the 6/7.